Dive right in. I'm going to put this overlay here to help us with some teaching aids in this close-up view of the picking hand. And you can see there the diagram of finger numbers. So it's very important to just note that, right? When we talk about our thumb, you'll see it's obviously indicated by T, but then one that can get a little confusing is how to count the finger numbers, which I'll use to illustrate the finger picking pattern that we're going to learn. So our index finger is going to be finger 1, our middle finger, finger 2, our ring finger, finger 3, and then lastly our pinky finger, our pinky finger, number 4. A little bit of a tongue twister there. But actually for this video, we're not really going to focus on our ring finger and our pinky finger. We're going to be learning a technique that's kind of like a claw finger picking technique. We're just going to use our thumb, we're going to use our index finger, and then we're going to use our middle finger. We're going to take the song, Goodness of God. You know, so normally strumming rise, right? I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy. And we're going to start to lay the foundations for eventually being able to do things like that. Right? And we won't get all the way there in this tutorial, but I want to lay the groundwork for just a simple finger picking pattern you can use to get you finger picking by Sunday. And I remember when I was starting out as a worship leader, man, it was so frustrating because I would hear these patterns or hear somebody, lead worship and really bring down the dynamic of a song with a finger picking pattern. Really can add a really just beautiful, lush, down moment to a song. Even maybe as you're starting a song, you're not coming out like guns blazing, full strumming right away. And remember, I was so frustrated because I'm like, man, I just couldn't get to the point where I could actually do that confidently. And I just learned along the way, you just have to start small with a very simple pattern, and just over time, the confidence to be able to do other patterns, and then kind of have it be something that's just in your toolbox and you'll almost start to do intuitively. It's just going to take some time. So let's start with a simple pattern. Let's dive right in. So again, don't get hung up on the song that I'm using. I am going to use Goodness of God, but this can apply to any worship song. And I'll show you a little bit later towards the end of the video here how you can apply this to other songs. But let's focus on the pattern. So for right now, I'm gonna do this here so you can really see that on that close-up view. And we're going to focus on the thumb hitting the lowest string of the chord that you're using. So in this case, I'm not going to start on the 6th string because I'm using a C chord, the start of Goodness of God here. So I'm actually going to rest my thumb on the 5th string there, the A string, so we can get that bass note, which is a C note, because I'm fretting here on my C note of the 3rd fret of the A string, 5th string. And then, like I said, we're only using these 2 fingers. So we're using our index finger and our middle finger, and those are going to be playing primarily actually on the 3rd string of the guitar, the G string. So right here, let me get that out of the way. So it's going to be plucking that G string. If I just leave it open there, not fretting anything. And then our middle finger is going to be plucking, so that's the 2nd finger, if you think about finger picking, is going to be plucking the B string. And we're just going to be keeping them on those strings. Now the only difference is this thumb. So these fingers, the high fingers here, the index finger, middle finger, are going to stay on those 2 strings, the G string and the B string. Now the thumb is going to go to our lowest note. So sometimes it's going to be on the 5th string, sometimes it's going to be on this the low E string, the 6th string. Sometimes it'll even be on this open D string here, or the 4th string, in the case of if we're using like a D chord. In this case, for Goodness of God, I don't think we actually go to that one. But again, don't get hung up on the song, because I want to teach you a principle that you can apply to really any worship song and any chord progression. So let's dive right in. In this case, we're taking C. So with that pattern, what we're going to be doing, let me demonstrate it and then I'll break it down. So it's going to sound like this. We're just taking the C chord. So what I'm doing there is, again, I'm plucking the A string, the lowest note, in this case because I'm using a C chord, and then I'm rocking back and forth with the index finger and the middle finger between these 2 strings. So I'm going, counting wise would be 1 and 2 and. So we're going thumb, index, middle, thumb, index, middle, index, thumb, middle, index, thumb, index, middle, index. So just back and forth. So you're hitting the bass note, then going index, middle, index. And that's what I mean by rocking back and forth on the high strings here. Let me get that a little more in the light so you can see that. So thumb, index, middle, index, thumb, middle, index, the thumb, thumb, index, middle, index. So there we go. Keep mixing up the numbers here. So keep that straight in your head, right? It's just, again, thumb. And if you look at the number diagram there, if you're counting it in numbers instead of the actual finger names, you're going thumb, 1, 2, 1. It's actually a little easier to play and say that. So thumb, 1, 2, 1. Thumb, 1, 2, 1. Thumb, 1, 2, 1. Now, if we switch to a G chord, for example, up here in our fretting hand, you'll notice what I did was instead of now the thumb plucking the A string, the 5th string, I'm switching up to the thumb plucking the lowest bass note of the chord. So in this case now, we're actually plucking with the thumb the low E string, the 6th string. So we're switching from, if I switch back and forth between those chords, it's going to look like this. Thumb, 1, 2, 1. Thumb, 1, 2, 1. Thumb, 1, 2, 1. So that's just switching back and forth between the C and the G. Switch back to the C. And this applies for any chord. Let's switch to an A minor. Again, now notice in this case, I stayed on the 5th string, the A string, because the A, that's the lowest bass note of the A minor chord. Now switching to the F. Now in this case, like I mentioned, in this case we're actually dropping the thumb to that D string, and so you're dropping that to that D string because I'm using this F shape, which is like an F major 7. So instead of a bar chord. So if you wanted to practice this, and let's say you even if you're still learning, for example, you're kind of like getting familiar with chords, you could really break it down and just practice your finger picking hand by leaving the strings open and just simply practicing this technique. You could start on the A string and you could go, okay, thumb. So thumb, 1, 2, 1. Thumb, G string, B string, G string. Again, rocking back and forth between the G string and the B string up top. And you're going thumb, thumb, 1, 2, 1. And then you could switch to the open E string, the low E string. Then even switch down to the 4th string, D string. Switch back up to the A string. So just practice moving your thumb, and then remember that these top 2 fingers are essentially like an anchor. They are staying locked in to that G string and the B string. So it kind of really provides a nice anchor. You can really lock them in there and then focus on getting comfortable moving your thumb around to the different fingers. And that's going to set you up for then when you add the chords in, going, okay, C, do it a little more up to tempo. Switch to the low E string for the G. A minor, so staying on the A string or going back to the A string. Then F, in this case, switching through that D string. So again, that's going to get you comfortable with you just being able to, whatever chord you're switching to, and like I said, if you take this slow, it'll eventually become kind of second nature. It'll become intuitive to actually play that thumb on the lowest note of whatever chord you are fretting in your left hand. If you're, obviously this is if you're assuming you're a right-handed player, right? This is the default way we would learn. If you're lefty, flip that away the other way sometimes, and you know your left hand might be your finger-picking hand, but the nice thing is the finger numbers stay the same. So, one more time, I just want to illustrate counting, and I've talked about this in a strumming video. I think it's really important as you're learning any kind of rhythm on acoustic guitar, really music in general, not just to learn kind of by ear, but man, it's so important, vital to be able to communicate with other musicians and actually learn the normal kind of conventional ways to count a rhythm. So in this case, again, rather than just kind of going like thumb 1 2 1, thumb 1 2 1, right? Another musician might not understand that, especially if you're playing in the context of a worship team, for example. So it's vital, I think, to focus on also just once you got the fingers, kind of the finger movement under your belt, I would focus on going, okay, now counting wise, it would actually be 1 and 2 and, assuming you're doing 8th notes. So 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and, or sorry, 1 and 2 and actually 3 and 4 and 1 and, no, this would be assuming we're playing a what's called a 4/4 time signature, and that's kind of the most common, just basic time signature that we encounter man, it's just a huge percentage of the time, especially in worship music. So again, you would count that 1 and 2, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now the nice thing, just a little tip here, is I actually played drums. Drums was my primary instrument, and so oftentimes when I've learned guitar, I think like a percussion section or a drum section. So counting wise, if you think about a basic drum beat that you would hear, so, a drummer hitting the kick drum going do, ga, snare drum on 2 and 4. So do, ga, do, ga, do. What you're doing is your picking hand is actually locking in with that bass drum, that bass note, the lowest note of the chord on beats 1 and 3. So once again, let me illustrate that. You're going 1 and 2 and 3 and so think of a bass drum, boom, boom. So it locks in really well with a rhythm section, boom. And then that high note, if you think about this, the highest note that you're plucking, in this case, that B string, hits on the 2 and 4, essentially of a basic drum rhythm, like boo, ga, boo, ga. And then this G string here is kind of filling in the notes, maybe similar to like a hi-hat, if you think about that from a drum. I've got a drum set over here. The hi-hat would be that symbol right there, right? So the other one is kind of filling in, the G string is filling in kind of those in-between notes. So again, once again, just illustrate that. 1 and 2, the highest note is hitting on 2 and 4. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So once again, just thumb 1 2 1, thumb 1 2 1. Get that first under your belt, the movement, and then try to count it out. 1 and 2 and 3, and then you can eventually speed it up. Switch. So really pretty to the F. Again, so just, man, super simple pattern, and encourage you to take it slow. Now what I want to do now is let me just demonstrate how this would go with Goodness of God, and then actually show you maybe one more song, I really don't want you to get hung up on the song that we're using. It can really work across a variety of worship songs. So let me illustrate this. I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. It works really well in the chorus. All my life you have been faithful, and 4 and. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able. Now, let me stop there, because you might notice, obviously, we're kind of breaking away from the typical pattern there, just to make sure we emphasize that chord change, kind of that passing note. So a little bit of an exception for this song. What we're doing there, and again, this is specific to Goodness of God, is we're hitting the A string, keeping with that A string, fifth string, and we're emphasizing the chord change. So we're going 1 and 2 and. So what I'm doing there to get that, just so you're not confused and frustrated, right, is instead of hitting the high B string, what I'm doing is just rocking back and forth between the thumb and the G string. So in this case, going 1 and 2 and. So thumb 1, and then the minor. And then I'm switching back to that pattern of thumb 1, 2, 1 in terms of finger numbers. So once again, let me slow that down. It'd be like this. Thumb 1, thumb 1, thumb 1, 2, 1, thumb 1, 2, 1, G, 2, 1, back to C. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, if you're kind of switching down with those passing notes, just essentially eliminate using the middle finger for that one specific beat, and then it allows you kind of rock back and forth with your thumb and emphasize, once again, the bass note. Now, if you think about this, I was talking about kind of thinking like a rhythm section. That's essentially, you're mimicking what like a bass player would do, right? Because a bass player would go boom, boom, boom. So that's essentially what you're doing with kind of rocking back and forth there. thumb one, then hitting the minor, thumb one, 2, 1, thumb 1, 2, 1, thumb 1, 2, 1, back to the pattern. Hopefully that makes sense, for goodness of God. But let me illustrate with just maybe one more song, just to show you that you don't have to get hung up on the song. This could work for a variety of progressions. And actually what I'll do is not even illustrate a song, but let me just take another progression. So let me take something like F to C to G to A minor. And we're not going to have any kind of passing notes on this one. It's just one measure per chord. And let me illustrate this. And actually, if you're wondering, like, this would be a progression for songs like Waymaker. And again, this could be a variety of different progressions. But I'll think about Waymaker in kind of in my head with this. So, for example, rather than just strumming, let's say it's the start of the song, and you want to do something like this. So once again, thumb starting on 4th string, D string. So here we go. So thumb 1, 2, 1, change, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and the G, A minor. I'm using an A minor 7 shape there. C, G. There's a regular A minor. So F to the C, 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you can do that for a variety of songs rather than just strumming. Again, you can use that very simple finger picking pattern to just get underway with finger picking. I know, like I said, towards the beginning of the videos, this was a source of frustration for me when I started leading worship. I was like, man, I just want to be able to finger pick to add some dynamic to the song. So hopefully this helps you. Sorry for all my tongue twisters there, but man, hopefully this is a helpful tutorial. And if there's anything question-wise that you have on finger picking, please leave a comment. I would love to be able to help you with specific questions. If there's anything I could have said more clearly, or kind of if I could break something down in a more clear way, would love to learn, how I can best help you. And what I'll do is I'll break down some other finger picking patterns. There's a really common one in worship called Travis picking, this kind of a thing. So you hear it in many songs. Gratitude is one right now that's really popular. You hear that in Gratitude. All my words fall short. Sorry, out of key on the vocal there, but you hear that in Gratitude. So that kind of a thing. So we'll cover picking like that, but I wanted to give you something super, super simple just to be able to get your finger picking journey underway. So hopefully this is helpful. Hey, before you go, I put together a free guide that I would love to get into your hands. If you go to influentialworship.com, you can receive this free guide. It's 6 practices that you can implement this week just to gain a greater sense of confidence in your worship leading, and not this proud and arrogant confidence, but just a sense of confidence of going, okay, if I focus on these things, I can better equip my team and also just be personally just better equipped to be able to lead worship with confidence. And so I'd love to get that into your hands. And friends, I will see you in the next video. God bless.